Okay, hello guys. We're super happy to have you here today on our marketing and PR channel. I'm Martyna Żaglewska-Bogucka. I'm event and office manager at Artblock. And here are our wonderful guests. Now I'd like to ask you guys to introduce yourselves and say a few words about what you do.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Adrian O. I'm the founder of a web3 marketing agency called Infinite Digital, based in London. We specialize in 4 things only: go-to-market strategies, community building, user acquisition, and user retention.
Martyna Borysliszka. I am PR director at Serotonin, a Web3 native marketing and a product studio. We do pretty much everything from community building to marketing and PR. I head up our PR function and work across a portfolio of clients across different sectors.
Hi everyone, my name is Karina and I am a consultant. I have my own Web3 company, it's called Behave Consulting, and it's more of a consultancy advisory, and we focus on developing growth strategy. And I am the new head of growth at the Defiant, which is a media company.
Wonderful. We're super happy to have you here, guys, once again. And without further ado, let's start with the first question. So many startups at the very, very beginning focus mostly on technical aspects, on creating a product. So the marketing function is very often bypassed or put on a back burner. And also, in many, many cases, startups cannot simply afford outsourcing or an agency. So how can they kick off the marketing and the promotion, and how can they become more visible? Let's start with Adrian.
I think, first of all, the founders have to have a very good team, not just the technical side, but on the business side, not basically on the marketing side. They need to learn about the foundations of marketing, and not just to spend the money as of like influencer marketing, etc., etc. They also need to hopefully have some time to do some market research on competitors, as of what did they do before, did they do something that is good or bad, and then they can actually save some time and money for their own business as well.
Yeah, I would say in Web3, what's kind of characteristic for Web3 is that the categories of company, investor, and a consumer collapse into one category that's called communities, right? So I would say at early stage, you really need to be receptive to what's going on in those communities, and almost like blow oxygen on those sparks. Don't assume that all the great ideas will come from you, and try to really decentralize that function. You know, you come to those events, you build the trust with the people who love your brand already, so make sure that they are your advocates. And you can do it just by kind of, paying attention to what's going on in Discords, in Telegram, how they feel about the brand, and kind of give them tools to then carry that message for you. The second thing I would say is just don't underestimate like the power of your own channels. And as you're building them slowly, and you might not have like a large following yet, but it's still worth it to put a couple of tweets to make sure that whatever you communicate is consistent and well written. You have blogs and you might have announcements. And when you have those announcements, make sure that you put them on those owned channels, because and even if you think, okay, no one's going to read it because we don't have that much traffic to our website, I promise that this will pay dividends further down the line where you actually grow your brand. And even journalists, from my perspective, they would go back to your website and be like, hey, so nothing what's going on between like 2017 and 2019 when you said the projects have started like a few years ago. So it's useful to have those things when people are landing on your website and they can see the track record of what you've been doing in the past.
Very much agree with what Martina said here, and to complement, so I work with a lot of early stage startups, sometimes startups that are in their very first funding round. So very often they don't have the budgets to invest in marketing, but they still need to prove some kind of a presence online. And not only online, and build a community. And what is very important here to do, adding to what Martina said, is, as you said, a lot of startups usually invest first in the technical side of things, and they might have a really amazing product, but they don't put a lot of effort into communicating the value of that product and explaining it to maybe they speak to developers and they go to hackathons and the developers and engineers understand the product, but the BDs and the partners and the other founders don't really understand it well. So this is why it's super important what Martina said, to have these blog posts and explainers and tweets and tutorials and demos and like make this effort from your team. And then adding to that, again, for more early stage startups in the beginning when they don't have a huge marketing team to invest in a lot of campaigns or do PR and so on. It's very important to strategize and prioritize what should be focused on. It's also very important to use a lot of ideas from traditional marketing and traditional like Web2 business model, business strategy, and to define the very simple things like the targeting, like what is your target, where does it hang out, what are the channels, and make sure that we don't cut out channels and we don't cut out opportunities. Anything that we can do for cheaper and for faster, let's say, and more efficient is very useful.
Exactly. So now let's stick to the startup context and let's move to some little sins and mistakes startups can make regarding their marketing campaigns and strategy. What are the key challenges startups have to face marketing-wise, and what are the most common mistakes? And by the way, is there any good way to avoid them? Maybe let's start with Martina.
Sure. I think Corina hinted at this a little bit. I would say the biggest challenge I see when companies are coming to us is really narrowing down what are their project's USPs. So they do all those amazing things, right? And sometimes it's just hard for them to decide what is the core, what is the one thing that they really care about. And that means that capturing attention at the early stage, it's very difficult if you don't have that focus. So I would say this is one of the big mistakes that can be easily fixed. And especially when you talk to people at the beginning, right, the chances are they will remember one or two things about your project, but they won't remember 3 or 4 or 5. And a good test for it is actually when you sit in your at your companies, maybe you have all hands meeting, ask a couple of people on your team to give you elevator pitch on what we do, and you will be surprised how people are conceptualizing and how people are explaining what you do, and that would give you a really good feedback in terms of like, is this message a little too convoluted? Is for me as a founder, does this feel like the right way to position my company when I hear my product team talking about what we are building, or when I hear a community manager, a marketing manager, or someone non-technical on the team, how they explain the project, and kind of take that feedback and work with that. I think this is one of the challenges that can be easily solved, and you don't need an agency, you don't need a large marketing team behind you to be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have a big list of mistakes I think the startups can do. I can sit here all day and speak about that. But from my last point, definitely one big mistake that I see with founders is cutting off channels and opportunities based on their own bias, or based on the fact that they don't have experience with a certain channel. And that could be certain social media channels or even PR. Sometimes founders just cut out PR just because they don't understand it, while they still have a lot of opportunity to grow there. So that is one of the things. Another thing is not involving any creativity. I mean, I know that Web3 is a very small space, it's a small niche. We don't have that big of a competition for different products, but we are growing, and more founders bring pretty much the same products, and sometimes they don't even manage to compete on the price or quality. So the last thing that is left to compete is basically the brand. And it's very important here to develop a strategy to differentiate your brand and see yourself as, okay, what else can I provide to my community, and how else can I hook people in besides the technical aspects. Once again, not everybody understands or needs to understand the technical aspects of your product. So this is why marketing and branding is really important.
Yeah, I think branding, messaging, all of the stuff that you actually mentioned absolutely is fundamental for all the companies before they actually spend any money on outreach or, let's say, getting the exposure out. But the next steps, I think what a lot of the founders or let's say startups are really missing out is like finding the right target audience. They thought they knew it, but at the end, when they tried to reach out to the, let's say, assumed audience group, actually they didn't really catch like the product market fit, and they're not able to really iterate as of like, what's the mistakes there? Like, how can we do better? Is it like the audience that we reach out to is not the right, or what is the channels that we should actually get into, right? So iterations is needed, and they need to be really agile and flexible, and to be open enough to discuss with the team members or the third parties that they're actually working with.
Can I add here something? Yeah, I really love what you touched upon in terms of targeting and the different marketing actions, because like marketing to developers and marketing to institutions and then marketing to traders is three completely different strategies and different tactics and different channels. And yeah, I see the same mistake as well very often.
Yeah, exactly. So if you guys don't mind, we can move to another question. Let's talk about some PR, since it's a marketing and PR panel. If we were to distinguish PR, marketing, and paid campaigns, they are all buzzwords, but sometimes they can seem as a bit foggy in terms of the terms itself. So what are the differences between them? Do they require a specific individual approach, and how can they benefit the company? Corina?
I think Martina is the #1 expert here on PR. Do you want to start?
Go on.
Okay, so it's very different. I see it as this. So PR, public relations, is all about your brand and developing sort of the brand presence and sending a message about who you are. Marketing is more about reaching more people and building brand awareness. Marketing is more about exposure. So it really depends. I'm sorry, what was the question? The differences between them?
Yeah, differences. Do they require a specific individual approach, and how specifically can they benefit the company?
Yeah, so once again, it depends very, very much on the type of product and the type of target group that they have. I personally believe that, for example, PR is extremely helpful in the case of institutions or any kind of product that sells to institutions. That is because that's usually, you know, the target group that reads the news, that cares about different reports and articles and interviews and so on. Marketing is more, a lot more beneficial in selling to retail. Maybe if you're like a trading app or any kind of, or web3 social or any kind of product that is targeting retail.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, our firm don't do PR. We work with PR marketing, PR agency. But we work with PR, I think, let's go back to PR. PR is all about credibilities, making announcement of either you have like key hires or you have like major milestones that you achieved. And I think working with the PR piece, with the marketing on the end, is really amplifying the messages and reaching out to the right target audience and to boost the confidence of what they are doing. And therefore, your brand loyalty is actually enhanced through this PR as well as marketing. And obviously, marketing has a lot of different channels that you can get into as well, influencer marketing, blog posts, etc., etc. So we can really go deep into it, but I don't think we have the time for it. But pay ads is the third aspect that you asked, right? Professionally, I don't recommend startups to actually run pay advertisements just because of the tools that we are slightly missing in the Web3 space, even though we have a lot of trackers, just like cookie-free, etc. But if the companies are not revenue generating, pay ads could could require a little bit more money in order to get it right. Yeah.
Martina?
Yeah, I would say this is all really valid points. When it comes to marketing, it's almost, it's the umbrella, it's everything that you do to build your brand, right? And then, so that's your core, and that's where you establish all those things that we chatted about in terms of like, what's our message, what's our focus, what's our USPs. PR is used to kind of amplify that further, and you do it by powerful storytelling, right? So when you the comfort with marketing is that you can use your own channels, and you are very much in control of that message, right? So you can write a blog about whatever you wish to write about, and that's great. PR is slightly more sophisticated in that approach because you actually need to find something that's, tells a story about your product or about what you do, what you build in a wider context, so that people who not necessarily care about what V3 includes in your project will find a piece of information that they link in the news and happens to be related to your project useful, right? So it's kind of finding those wider contexts in terms of what industry cares about and what we are building to kind of meet those demands and those needs. So again, I'm talking about storytelling, right? It's crafting the messages to find the relevance. So I would say that's kind of the PR in a nutshell. But yeah, like certainly all of community building, marketing, content strategy, paid PR have their space and like timing. I would say I very much agree with Adrian here. Be careful with paid, because crypto specifically is known for those intense hype cycles. And especially like a few years back during the bull market, there was a lot of like influencer marketing campaigns and shilling projects and products with the influencers who doesn't really have any skin in the game. So they would just talk about whatever you said, like you would pay them to talk about, and that hurt a lot of newcomers who can't really verify that those informations. So then, I think that tainted the reputation of influencer marketing a little bit in the crypto space. And I would much rather you guys focus on things like being really strong on your own channels, very unified. And then if you have resources on PR, trying to extend that into building relationship with media and building credibility this way.
So since we're in a bear market, let's discuss some changes and challenges marketing has to face regarding the market situation. Is it changing? How is it changing? And do marketers have to develop new tools?
Let me start first. I love this topic actually. It's very interesting because everyone is experiencing it right now in the bear market. Our strategies for our clients is really looking into the budgeting as of like, hey, don't spend the money. If you spend the money and if we don't get the really good ROI, it's not that we are not doing a good job, but actually it's the market reaction doesn't take the actions, right? Because most of the time we have the product market fit, but people are stepping back because of the market sentiment. So that's one thing. And just because don't spend the money to acquire more users, this means that we actually have to make sure that all of our communities are happy with what we're doing, right? So how do we make sure that they don't create FUD? Because one FUD is created, you will have to put all the water to let's say, put off the fire, right? So make sure that the community is happy with what you guys are building. When they're happy, they're going to play or let's say invest. And then they will tell their friends through social medias. So make sure that this no-ball approach, not just applying in this bear market, but also in the bull market as well.
I really agree with that, with the focus on the community. I personally think unless you have an urgent need to right now quickly get some more users or, in order to get more revenue. But if this is not the case for you, I would take this time to actually focus more on building brand loyalty within your community and focusing more on the product development. Basically, kind of like preparing for the bull market when things are going to go better. Yeah, because you might, if you do some paid campaigns, maybe you might be spending some money in the air. But besides that, I do have some suggestions actually. Number one, I noticed it's pretty easy in the bear market to negotiate with different providers, social media companies as well, so you can do that. Number two, something I learned very, very cool from ETHWarsaw. It's a company that offers SDKs and different no-code tools, and their target audience is not even developers, it's people who want to develop something, but they don't have the skills for that. And their head of growth told me about their really, I think, brilliant strategy in terms of marketing, and I think they're very well known. It's about basically automating everything to the fullest and providing all of the tutorials, all of the demos, all of the information, all of the answers to all of the questions already somewhere like on the website, and distributing the basically compressing the effort focused on marketing, community, and so on within the team, and making sure that, for example, the engineering team also does some kind of community facing actions. So in this way, they have a really small team, but they manage to, reach a really big audience and sustain that audience. And that is basically, my advice is work smarter and not harder in the bear market, and prepare for the summer to come.
That's awesome. I can't wait for summer. No, I agree. I think that's really good points. Focus on communities, that's always a good shout. Like, one of the things I would say, just don't disappear, right? Whether that's like you're chatting to your communities, like pushing announcements to communities, or like, as I was saying, those like using those owned channels, right? Like, I know it might feel disheartening when you're putting a blog and there is not as many views, whatever, but like leave those breadcrumbs and do it constantly, and like it will pay dividends further down the line, certainly in the bull market. So I think that's pretty much what you guys were saying as well. But on PR, I would say, be very conscious of like how you want to contribute to the debate, right? When there is a bear market, there is a lot of fad, and there are a lot of journalists who are looking for, comments or like stories to kind of fuel a little bit of that unproductive conversation. So always, when you look at opportunities that might be landing, or when you talk to journalists, think about like how I want to show up in this story, and like what do I want to contribute to this debate. And feel free to always kind of steer the conversation and educate and be like, do you know what? I think the real problem is actually not that the Bitcoin price have dropped, but what's important, or what people don't see, is what we are building. Oh, do you know what I mean? So you can be really in charge of the conversation and steer it in a way that feeds into productive conversations, instead of like fueling those fat stories that we often in the bull market see. So yeah, if you still in a position to have this relationship with journalists when they come for stories, just make sure that you are educating and you are steering conversations into the right direction.
Okay, thank you for all your very insightful answers. Do we still have time for some audience questions, if there are any? Okay, we can have one. There you go.
My question is to Adrian there too. You mentioned the tool Pocket Free. If you can repeat the name, I don't know if I heard it rightly. And the second one is, you mentioned the right audience. Some people will know about it, but you said that actually they should iterate to make sure that they find the right one. Can you iterate or like go deeper into that? Like,
What's the first one? The first one is the name of the tool, right? Cookie free.
Pocky?
Cookie free.
He's around here. I can introduce you.
Yeah, cookie free. What's the second one? Sorry.
So regarding the target audience, you mentioned that the founders would think they know the right audience, but they don't. So how do they find one that they're the wrong target audience, and then how do they make sure that they find the right one at the end?
Yeah, good question. So we need to look into the internal first, as of like, who are our users? Why are they actually using our product? What utilities that are so sticky right? Like, who are they? Why are they using it? Who are their friends that they can potentially help us to build a better product or get the feedback coming? That's the internal. External, it depends on the company strategies as of like what did they do before, as of like there are so many different channels, right? Influencer marketing or Twitter, whatever, or using those engagement platform, which I am highly disencouraged. So really find out what went wrong and how can we really point out those people actually said, oh, you don't like what we do. Why? And even though it's really not nice to hear from them because they disagree with us, right? But those are the people who actually either care enough or not care enough to give you the comment, right? So if we can actually get some time from them, I think that's a very good point to actually get the right audience for your product.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so I think we're heading over our panel. Thank you guys once again.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys.